At dinner, I said, "Can't wait for the family reunion." My brother laughed. "You're not invited, it's for real family." Everyone laughed. I just smiled and left. I was 11 when Dad married Patricia. She came with 2 kids, my brother Brandon and his younger sister. Dad sat me down the night before the wedding and said Patricia's family would be my family now, that we'd all be equal. I believed him. For 7 years, I watched Dad slowly forget I existed. Patricia would plan family trips, and somehow there were only 4 tickets. Brandon got a new car for his 16th birthday. I got a used bike from a garage sale for my 17th. When I graduated high school, Dad and Patricia were in Hawaii celebrating their anniversary. Brandon posted photos of them all on the beach with the caption, "Best family vacation ever." My bedroom became Brandon's gaming room 6 months after the wedding. My clothes were moved to the basement guest room. Patricia said it was temporary, just until they finished renovating. They never renovated. The basement had a small window near the ceiling and smelled like mildew. I could hear them laughing upstairs during family movie nights I wasn't invited to. I paid for community college myself, working nights at a gas station and weekends at a diner. Whenever I called Dad, Patricia would answer and say he was busy. When I did visit, I'd find my childhood photos removed from the walls, replaced with professional portraits of Patricia's kids. Even the photo of my mom, Dad's first wife, who died when I was 8, was gone, replaced with a canvas print that said, "Family is everything." The dinner comment came during Brandon's engagement party at an upscale restaurant. I'd driven 3 hours to be there, brought an expensive gift I couldn't afford, a set of crystal glasses that cost 2 weeks of wages. When I mentioned the upcoming family reunion, the same one we'd attended every summer since I was 5, the one on my mom's side of the family, everyone at the table went silent. That's when Brandon said it. "You're not invited. It's for real family." Patricia smiled and added, "You understand, right? It's just getting so expensive and we have to prioritize." She touched Brandon's hand. "We want to make sure the real siblings get quality time together." Dad said nothing. He just cut his steak, took a sip of wine, and avoided my eyes like I was a stranger asking for spare change. Brandon's fiancée looked uncomfortable. She glanced at me, then at him, but said nothing. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out. Nobody followed. Nobody called my name. The laughter resumed before I even reached the parking lot. In my car, I didn't cry. Instead, I opened my laptop and started searching. See, what my family didn't know was that I'd been accepted to law school. Full scholarship. Top marks. I'd spent 2 years quietly building a case, documenting everything. The trust fund my mother left me that Dad was supposed to hold until I turned 25. The college fund that mysteriously disappeared right around the time Patricia wanted a kitchen renovation. The life insurance payout that went into an account I was never told about. I'd also discovered something interesting about Patricia. She had 2 other kids from a previous marriage. Kids she'd abandoned to marry my dad. Kids she never mentioned. Kids who were very interested in meeting their half-siblings and learning about the money Patricia claimed she didn't have for child support. I made 3 phone calls that night. The first was to Patricia's ex-husband. The second was to my mother's estate lawyer. The third was to the family reunion coordinator. Then I waited. 3 weeks later, I received a certified letter. My mother's estate lawyer had found major discrepancies in Dad's financial records. The trust fund that should have been worth $300,000 had been systematically drained over 7 years. Dad and Patricia had been using it to fund their lifestyle. The Hawaii trips, Brandon's car, the kitchen renovation, his sister's private school tuition, family vacations to Europe I saw on social media. The lawyer was very interested in pursuing this, especially since Dad had been signing documents claiming the money was going toward my education and care. Documents filed with the court, documents that constituted fraud. I told him to do whatever was necessary. That same week, Patricia's other 2 kids showed up at Dad's house unannounced. Her son Tyler was 23, her daughter Madison was 20. They'd tracked down Brandon and his sister through social media after I'd anonymously sent them a message suggesting they look into their mother's new family. I'd included photos from Patricia's social media, the big house, the expensive cars, the luxury vacations. Patricia had abandoned them when they were 8 and 5, told them she was going on a business trip and never came back. No calls, no birthday cards, nothing. Their dad had raised them alone, working 2 jobs, while Patricia was 3 states over building her new perfect family with my dad. She'd even legally changed her last name to erase any connection to them. Tyler called me after that first meeting. His voice was shaking with rage and hurt. She pretended she didn't know us. Literally stood there in the doorway and said we must have the wrong person. When I showed her a photo of us as kids, she slammed the door in our faces. I recorded the conversation. I'd been recording everything for months now. Madison got back in touch a week later. She'd done some digging. Patricia had never paid a cent of child support after abandoning them. Their dad had been too broken to pursue it, too focused on just keeping them fed and housed. But the statute of limitations hadn't run out, not even close. The family reunion was in 6 weeks. I'd called the coordinator, my great-aunt Helen, and explained the situation. She'd known my mom since they were kids, actually been her maid of honor at her wedding to Dad. When I told her what was happening, she was livid. The reunion was on my mother's side of the family. It always had been. Patricia had somehow convinced Dad that it was just a general family reunion, but it wasn't. It was specifically for my mom's family, the family Patricia had spent 7 years trying to replace. My grandmother was still alive. She was 89, sharp as ever, and ran the family with an iron will wrapped in velvet gloves. I drove 8 hours to visit her and brought every document I'd collected. Bank statements, emails, text messages, photos of me in that basement room compared to the professional photos of Brandon and his sister in their perfectly decorated bedrooms. She sat in her chair, reading through everything with her reading glasses perched on her nose. Her hands trembled slightly, not from age, but from rage. When she finished, she removed her glasses and looked up at me with steel in her eyes. "Your mother would be so proud of you," she said quietly, "and so disappointed in her son." Grandma made some calls. The family reunion would be at her estate that year instead of the usual park venue. "A special reunion," she said, one where some truths needed to come out. She started contacting every family member personally, telling them there would be an important family meeting. That attendance was mandatory if they wanted to remain in good standing with the family. Meanwhile, the legal case was moving forward. Dad had been using my trust fund as his personal bank account for 7 years. The lawyer estimated, with interest and penalties, Dad owed over $400,000. The withdrawals had been frequent and brazen: $5,000 here for a vacation, $10,000 there for Brandon's car, $20,000 for the kitchen renovation. Patricia's ex-husband filed for back child support, 17 years worth, with interest. The amount was staggering, over $200,000. Patricia had been living large while her first 2 kids ate generic cereal and wore secondhand clothes. Brandon found out he wasn't getting the college fund he'd been promised, the one Dad had been bragging about at family dinners, talking about how he'd saved so much for his son's education, because Dad had spent it on Hawaii, on cars, on maintaining the image of a perfect blended family, while my real mother's money paid for it all. Brandon called me. His voice was different, uncertain, maybe even scared. "Did you do this?" he asked. "Are you the reason Dad's freaking out about lawyers?" I answered honestly. "I'm the reason Dad's being held accountable for stealing from me, yes. If that's causing him stress, maybe he shouldn't have committed fraud." He was quiet for a long moment. "I didn't know about the trust fund, about any of it." He said it like that made it better. "You laughed when you uninvited me from the family reunion," I said. "You've watched me get erased from this family for 7 years and never said a word. So whether you knew the details or not, you knew enough." He hung up. His sister called next. Her name was Melody, and she'd always been quieter than Brandon, more observant. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I should have said something. I should have stood up for you." "Why didn't you?" I asked. She was crying. "Because it was easier not to. Because standing up to my mom means becoming the target. Because I was scared. But that doesn't make it right. It doesn't excuse what I let happen." I appreciated her honesty more than Brandon's excuses. But appreciation doesn't undo 7 years of silence. 2 days before the reunion, I got a call from Dad. His voice was different, smaller, desperate. "We need to talk," he said. "Can we meet somewhere? Just you and me, please?" I suggested the diner where I used to work during high school, the one I'd worked at to save money for college while Brandon got a new gaming computer, a new phone, a new everything. The one where I'd served families their Sunday breakfasts while my own family ate without me. He showed up looking older than I remembered, thinner. His hair had more gray. He slid into the booth across from me and couldn't meet my eyes. The confident man who'd cut his steak and ignored me had been replaced by someone who looked haunted. "I didn't know about the trust fund," he started. His voice cracked. "Patricia handled all the finances. I just signed what she put in front of me. You have to believe me." I pushed a folder across the table. Inside were bank statements, his signature on every single withdrawal authorization, emails where he'd discussed the expenditures with Patricia, complete with subject lines like using the college fund for the renovation and another withdrawal from the trust. Text messages where they'd joked about me never finding out, with Patricia writing she's too busy working her little jobs to notice and Dad responding with a laughing emoji. There were more texts too, ones I'd found buried in old phone records. Patricia writing, "What if she finds out?" And Dad responding, "She won't. She barely talks to us anymore anyway." Another exchange where Patricia suggested using more of the trust fund and Dad saying, "At this rate, it'll be gone before she turns 25. Might as well use it while we can." His face went white as he flipped through the pages. His hands started shaking so badly he had to set the papers down. "The fraud report you filed 3 weeks ago," I said calmly, "claimed you'd been forged, that Patricia had stolen my identity to access the accounts without your knowledge. But these documents tell a different story, don't they? They tell the story of a man who systematically robbed his own daughter to fund his new family." Dad's hands were shaking. He looked like he might cry. "What do you want? Just tell me what you want. Money? I'll find a way to pay you back. Just drop the charges. Please. I want you to stand up at the family reunion," I said, my voice steady, in front of everyone. All of Mom's family, the family that actually loved me, and tell the truth. About the money, about erasing me from the family, about choosing Patricia's kids over your own daughter. I want you to explain to Grandma why you betrayed Mom's memory, why you took money Mom set aside to protect me and used it to buy Brandon a car. And I want you to apologize. A real apology, not an excuse. And if I don't, then my lawyer proceeds with criminal charges. Theft, fraud, embezzlement from a trust. The prosecutor is very interested. Apparently they love cases where parents steal from their kids. You're looking at 5 to 10 years. Patricia, too. And I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Every family member, every friend, every person at your country club. His voice came out as a whisper. You'd really send me to prison? I leaned forward. You erased me from my own family. You took the money my dying mother set aside to protect me and used it to fund the family that replaced me. You didn't come to my high school graduation. You weren't there when I got into law school. You removed her photos from the walls. You gave away my bedroom. So yes, Dad, I'd really send you to prison because that's what you deserve. But I'm still your father, he said desperately. No, I said quietly. You were my father. Then you chose to stop. That was your decision. This is mine. He tried to reach across the table. I pulled back. Please, he whispered. I made mistakes, but I'm still your dad. That has to mean something. It meant everything, I said. Past tense. It meant everything when I was 11 and needed you. When I was 14 and needed you. When I was 17 and graduated and needed you. But you weren't there. You were with them. So now it means nothing. He left the diner without ordering. I watched him walk to his car, shoulders slumped, a broken man. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt tired. And maybe a little bit free. The waitress came over. Same girl I'd worked with 3 years ago. She'd seen the whole thing. That your dad? She asked. Used to be, I said. She refilled my coffee without charging me. Some people don't deserve their kids, she said. Good for you. The reunion arrived on a hot Saturday in July. Dad and Patricia showed up with Brandon and his sister, all dressed like they were attending a funeral, which in a way they were. The funeral of their comfortable lies. Tyler and Madison came too. I'd invited them. They deserved to confront the woman who'd abandoned them. Tyler wore a suit that was slightly too big. Madison wore a dress she'd probably borrowed. They both looked terrified and determined. I met them at the entrance. Thank you for coming, I said. I know this isn't easy. Tyler shook his head. Thank you for giving us the chance. We've spent 15 years wondering if we were the problem. If we did something to make her leave, maybe today we get some answers. The estate was beautiful. Sprawling gardens, a huge house that had been in the family for 3 generations. My great-great-grandfather had built it. My mother had been married in those gardens. Family members filled the main hall. Aunts, uncles, cousins I'd played with as a kid, family friends who'd known my mother. Over 60 people. Patricia looked around nervously. This is all her family? She whispered to Dad. He nodded, face pale. I saw the moment it hit her. She wasn't just an outsider here. She was an intruder. Every person in that room loved my mother, had mourned her, had watched her daughter grow up, and every person was about to learn what Patricia had done. Grandma stood at the front of the room. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, but she commanded attention in a way that made everyone fall silent immediately. This reunion is about family, she began, her voice clear and strong. Real family. The kind built on truth and love, not convenience and money. She looked directly at Dad. My grandson has something he'd like to say. I believe he has some explaining to do about how he's treated his daughter, my granddaughter, your cousin, your niece, over the past 7 years. Dad stood slowly. His face was red. The room was packed and every eye was on him. Some faces were confused, some were already angry. Grandma had briefed the key family members. He confessed everything. The trust fund. The systematic exclusion of me from family events. The way he'd allowed Patricia to erase my mother's memory from their home. How he'd taken money my mother left to protect me and used it to buy his stepson a car, to renovate a kitchen, to take vacations I wasn't invited on. His voice kept breaking. Some people gasped, others shook their heads in disgust. He talked about the withdrawals. First just a few thousand here and there, then tens of thousands at a time. How he'd justified it by telling himself I didn't need it yet. How Patricia had convinced him that her kids deserved the same advantages I had. How they'd planned to pay it back before I turned 25. But you never intended to pay it back, an uncle called out. Did you? Dad's silence was answer enough. Patricia tried to interrupt. This is ridiculous, she said, standing up. She's being dramatic. She's just jealous that we built a real family. Grandma cut her off with a single look that could have frozen fire. You're not family, she said, each word sharp as a knife. You never were. You're just a woman who saw a widower with money and manipulated him into abandoning his daughter. She gestured to Tyler and Madison, who stood near the back. But these 2 young people, these are my family by blood and by truth. Your mother abandoned them. Left them with nothing while she played perfect stepmother to children she'd convinced my grandson to prioritize over his own flesh and blood. Patricia's face went red. Those kids are nothing to me. They were a mistake from a previous life. The room erupted. Cousins started shouting. An uncle yelled that she needed to leave. Tyler stepped forward, his jaw clenched, and for a moment I thought he might hit her. Madison pulled him back, tears streaming down her face. A mistake? Tyler yelled. We were children. Your children. You left us in an apartment with no food and no note. Dad thought you were dead. He called hospitals, police. He thought you'd been murdered. Patricia's face went pale. That's not... I had to leave. You had to leave? Madison's voice broke. We were 5 and 8 years old. I cried for you every night for 2 years. I thought I'd done something wrong. I thought you didn't love me because I wasn't good enough. The room had gone completely silent. Everyone stared at Patricia. She tried to defend herself. You don't understand. Their father was abusive. I had to escape. Tyler laughed bitterly. Dad was abusive? Dad, who worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. Dad, who never missed a parent-teacher conference. Dad, who learned to braid hair from YouTube videos because Madison wanted pigtails. That dad? He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. This is Dad. Last year. He's got stage 4 cancer. Been fighting it for 3 years. He wanted to reach out to you, to let you know, to give you a chance to... I don't even know what. Make peace, maybe. But I told him no. I told him you didn't deserve to know. Patricia sat down hard. Her face crumbled. I didn't know. Because you never asked. Madison said quietly. You never looked back. Not once. Grandma raised her hand and silence fell again. This estate, this family, this reunion, all of it comes from my daughter's side. The daughter your husband married. The daughter you've spent 7 years erasing. Every photo you removed. Every memory you tried to destroy. That was my daughter. A woman who died too young and trusted her husband to care for the child she left behind. She turned to me. My granddaughter has every right to be here. She is the only reason any of you were ever invited to these reunions in the first place, because through her flows the blood of this family. She pointed at Patricia. You do not. You never did. Patricia stood up to leave, grabbing her purse. 2 of my uncles, both former military, blocked the door. Their arms crossed, faces stern. You're not leaving until this is finished, one said. Grandma continued, and I realized this was a speech she'd been preparing for weeks. We welcomed you into this family because we trusted my grandson to know what was right. We believed him when he said you would love his daughter as your own. Instead, you isolated her, erased her, stole from her. She looked around the room. Everyone here needs to understand what happened. This woman convinced my grandson to steal from his own daughter's trust fund. Money his dying wife set aside to protect their child. $300,000 gone. Used for cars and vacations and renovations while my granddaughter worked 3 jobs and slept in a basement. The room exploded again. Cousins I hadn't seen in years surrounded me with hugs and apologies. Aunts were crying. Brandon's sister Melody started sobbing, saying she didn't know. She never knew. Brandon just sat there, staring at his hands, his perfect life crumbling around him. An aunt I barely remembered approached Dad. She was my mother's college roommate, had been at my birth. You brought strangers to our family reunion and excluded your own daughter? Her voice shook with rage. You took money from your child, your blood, the only piece of your wife you had left, and gave it to a woman who abandoned her own children? She shook her head in disgust. Your wife is rolling in her grave. I hope you know that. I hope you feel it every single day. Another uncle stepped forward. This was Uncle Marcus, my mom's youngest brother. He'd been 16 when she died, had helped babysit me. Give me one good reason why we shouldn't throw you out of this family right now. One reason why you deserve to be here when your daughter almost wasn't. Dad had no answer. He just stood there crying silently. Uncle Marcus turned to me. I failed you, he said. His voice cracked. I should have checked on you more. Should have noticed. I'm so sorry, it's not your fault, I said. You were a kid yourself when Mom died. I was old enough to see, he said. Old enough to notice you weren't at Christmas anymore. Weren't at birthdays. He looked at Dad with pure hatred. We all failed her, because we believed you. We trusted you to take care of her. Grandma spoke again. From this day forward, Patricia and her biological children are no longer welcome at family functions. This includes holidays, reunions, and any gatherings bearing our family name. She looked at Dad. As for you, you are my grandson, and you are my blood. But you are on probation with this family. One more step out of line, one more moment of choosing that woman over your daughter, and you're out too. Dad nodded, tears streaming down his face. The lawyer I'd hired arrived an hour later with paperwork. He was a tall man with gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude. He'd been delighted to take this case. Apparently, he'd been in a similar situation as a kid. His stepmother had stolen from him too. In front of everyone, Dad signed an agreement to repay the full trust fund with interest, $412,000. Patricia signed a settlement with her ex-husband for back child support, $235,000. They had 90 days to sell assets and make payment. If they missed a single deadline, criminal charges would proceed immediately. Patricia's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the pen. This will ruin us, she whispered. The lawyer looked at her with complete indifference. You ruined yourselves. This is just accountability. He turned to Tyler and Madison. Your father's legal fees are being covered by the settlement. He won't see a cent of the money. It's going directly to a fund for your education and his medical care. Madison started crying. She hugged her brother. Then she hugged me. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for caring about us when our own mother didn't. I didn't stay for the rest of the reunion. I'd said what I needed to say. I'd gotten what I came for. Justice. Recognition. Proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't dramatic, wasn't jealous. Proof that what they did was wrong. Tyler walked me to my car. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion, for finding us, for giving us a chance to confront her, for showing us we weren't the problem. You were never the problem, I said. She was. People like her always are. Madison hugged me tight. She smelled like the jasmine perfume my mom used to wear. You gave us something back, she whispered. Something we thought we'd lost forever. What's that? I asked. Proof that we mattered, she said. That we were worth fighting for. That someone saw us and cared. I smiled. Family's complicated, I said. But blood doesn't make family. Actions do. Love does. Showing up does. And she didn't do any of that. They both hugged me again before I drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Dad standing on the steps of the estate, watching me leave. He raised his hand in a small wave. I didn't wave back. 6 months later, Dad and Patricia divorced. The financial pressure broke them. They had to sell the house. The one with my mom's life insurance money as the down payment. The one with the renovated kitchen paid for with my trust fund. Brandon had to withdraw from his expensive private university and transfer to community college. Melody had to leave private school and enroll in public school. Patricia moved into a small apartment downtown. I heard through family gossip that she was working retail, that her new employer had no idea about her law degree or her previous life, that she'd essentially started over. The money came through on day 87 of the 90-day deadline, $412,000, transferred into my account. I stared at the number for a long time. Money my mom had saved. Money that was meant to protect me. Money that finally came home. Brandon called me once, late at night, drunk. His words were slurred and he was crying. He said he was sorry. Said he didn't know it had been that bad. Said his mom, Patricia, had told him I was dramatic, that I'd always been jealous, that I'd walked away from the family by choice. She told us you didn't want to be part of the family, he said, that you were bitter about the divorce and took it out on her, that you made up stories to get attention, and you believed her, I said quietly. For 7 years you believed her over me. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I don't blame you for hating me. I don't hate you, I said. I nothing you, and that's so much worse. What does that mean? He asked. It means you're not important enough to hate, I said. You're just someone I used to know, someone who stood by and watched while I got erased, and I don't waste energy on people like that. I hung up and blocked his number. Melody reached out separately. She sent a long email, pages and pages of apology. She explained how Patricia had controlled everything in their house, how she'd monitored their phones, their social media, their friendships, how she'd told them that showing kindness to me would be betraying the family, how she'd threatened to send Melody away to boarding school if she ever sided with me over Patricia. I'm not making excuses, she wrote. I should have been braver. I should have stood up for you. But I was scared, and I was a coward, and I'm sorry. I wrote back. Your apology means something. Unlike your brothers, it actually acknowledges what you did wrong. But I'm not ready to have you in my life. Maybe someday, but not now. She wrote back immediately. I understand. If that day ever comes, I'll be here. You deserved better. You deserved all of us to be better. I kept that email. The trust fund money paid off my law school loans completely. I put a down payment on a small house with a real bedroom that had windows and sunlight. 3 bedrooms, actually. One for me, one for an office, and one for guests. I bought a dining room table big enough for family dinners. I hung photos of my mom on every wall. Photos Patricia had removed. Photos I'd rescued from boxes in Grandma's attic. There was one of my mom holding me as a baby. Her smile was radiant. She looked so young, so happy, so alive. I hung it in the living room where I could see it every day. Tyler and Madison visit twice a year now, sometimes more. We're building something real, something honest. They call me family and mean it. Madison is studying to be a therapist, specializing in childhood abandonment. Tyler works in child protective services. We all took our pain and turned it into purpose. Their dad passed away 8 months after the reunion. Tyler called me crying. He's gone, was all he could say. Madison got on the phone. He wanted to thank you, she said, for giving us closure with our mom, for helping us understand it wasn't our fault. You gave him peace before he died. I went to the funeral. It was small. Just Tyler, Madison, a few close friends. Patricia wasn't there. She'd been told but didn't come. At the reception, Madison showed me a letter their dad had written before he died. It was addressed to me. Inside, he thanked me. Said I'd given his kids something he never could. Proof that their mother's abandonment wasn't their fault. That they weren't unlovable. He said he wished he could have done more for them. Wished he could have fought harder against his own pain to give them what they deserved. Your mother would have liked you, he wrote at the end. She would have been proud of the woman you've become. Thank you for loving my children when their own mother couldn't. I cried in the church bathroom for 20 minutes. Dad sends cards on my birthday and Christmas. Long cards with handwritten notes about how sorry he is, how he thinks about me every day, how he wishes he could go back and change everything. I don't open them, but I don't throw them away either. They sit in a box in my closet, unopened. Maybe someday I'll read them. Maybe someday I won't need to anymore. Last Christmas, he sent a package. I opened it. Inside was my mother's jewelry box. The one I remembered from childhood. The one that played a lullaby when you opened it. The one that had disappeared from the house shortly after Patricia moved in. There was a note. I found this in the attic. Patricia had hidden it, along with other things of your mother's. I'm sending them all to you. They should have been yours all along. Inside the box was my mother's wedding ring, her pearl necklace, her charm bracelet with tiny charms for every important moment in her life, including one shaped like a baby, me. I called him for the first time in 2 years. Thank you, I said when he answered, for sending Mom's things. He was crying. I should have protected them. Should have protected you. I don't know how to make this right. You can't, I said. Not completely. But this is a start. Can I see you? He asked. Just coffee, please. Not yet, I said. But maybe someday. It was the first time I'd left that door open, even a crack. Grandma lived 2 more years after that reunion. Before she died, she called me to her bedside. Her hand was paper thin in mine, but her grip was still strong. Your mother knew, she whispered, her voice weak but clear. She knew she was dying when you were young. The doctors gave her 6 months. She spent every day of it setting up that trust fund, writing letters to you, making videos you were supposed to get on your birthdays. She wanted to make sure you'd be protected even after she was gone. My throat closed. I'd never known that. I'd always thought her death was sudden. Where are the letters? I asked. Where are the videos? Grandma's face hardened. Your father was supposed to give them to you, one on each birthday until you turned 18. She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. He never did he? I shook my head, unable to speak. Her eyes filled with tears. I should have checked on you more. I should have known. But you were strong, so strong. And you honored her by protecting yourself. That's what she would have wanted. Where are they now? I asked. The letters and videos? In my safe, she said. I found them in your father's house when I was looking for evidence for the lawyer. He'd kept them all. Never gave you a single one. She pointed to her dresser. The key is in the top drawer. They're yours now. They always should have been. I cried then. The first time I'd cried about any of it. I never meant to cut him out of my life, I said through sobs. He cut me out first. I just made sure he couldn't pretend he hadn't. Grandma squeezed my hand. That's not cutting someone out. That's self-preservation. There's a difference. A big difference. You didn't destroy your family. You revealed what it really was. And that's not cruelty. That's courage. She died 3 days later, surrounded by family. Real family. I took the letters and videos home. 18 letters, 18 videos. One for each birthday from 11 to 18, plus a few extras. One for my high school graduation, one for my college graduation, one for my wedding day, one for the birth of my first child. I started with the first letter, the one I should have received on my 11th birthday, 1 month after she died. My darling girl, it began in my mother's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I won't be there for your first heartbreak, your first day of high school, your graduation. I'm sorry I won't be there to teach you to drive or help you pick out a prom dress. But I need you to know something. You are so loved, more than you could ever know. The letter went on. She talked about how proud she was of me, how she knew I'd grow up to be strong and kind and brave, how she'd set up the trust fund to make sure I'd always be taken care of, how she'd made my father promise to love me no matter what. He promised me, she wrote, promised he would always put you first, that he would never let anyone make you feel less than. If he kept that promise, then I died knowing you were safe. If he didn't, then I hope you find the strength to protect yourself. Because you deserve to be protected, my darling. You deserve to be loved exactly as you are. I watched the video through tears. My mother sat in her bedroom, thin and pale, wearing a scarf over her bald head. But her smile was bright. Her voice was strong. Happy 11th birthday, baby, she said to the camera. I'm so sorry I'm not there to celebrate with you, but I hope your dad made you a cake. I hope he took you somewhere special. I hope he's being the father I know he can be. She talked for 10 minutes. About how much she loved me. About how proud she was. About all the things she wished she could tell me in person. At the end, she looked directly at the camera. If things get hard, she said, if you ever feel alone, remember this. You are my daughter. You are strong. You are worthy. And you are so, so loved. Don't let anyone ever make you believe otherwise. I watched all 18 videos in one night. Watched my mother age backward as I aged forward. She told me things I'd needed to hear at every age. Gave me advice I desperately wanted. Told me she loved me again and again and again. In the video for my 18th birthday, she looked the sickest. Could barely sit up. But her message was clear. You're an adult now, she said. Old enough to make your own choices. Old enough to decide who deserves to be in your life. Don't keep people around out of obligation. Keep them because they love you, respect you, and show up for you. Anyone who doesn't do those things doesn't deserve you. It was like she'd known, like she'd seen the future and was giving me permission to protect myself. The video for my wedding day broke me. I'll never get to help you pick out a dress, she said, crying. I'll never get to walk down the aisle at your wedding. I'll never get to tell you how beautiful you look. But I hope you marry someone who loves you the way your father loved me. Someone who would move mountains for you. Someone who makes you feel safe and seen and cherished. Don't settle for less. You're worth everything. At her funeral, Dad tried to approach me. Patricia wasn't with him. They'd finalized the divorce a month earlier. He looked even older, smaller somehow. His suit hung loose on his frame. Can we talk? He asked. His voice was pleading. Please? I know I don't deserve it, but please. I looked at him for a long moment. The man who'd raised me until I was 11. The man who taught me to ride a bike and read bedtime stories and told me I could be anything I wanted. The man who disappeared the moment a new family became more convenient. What's my favorite color? I asked. He blinked, confused. What? My favorite color. The name of my best friend in high school. My college major. What I wanted to be when I grew up. My favorite food. The last book I read. Anything. Can you answer any of those questions? His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. His silence was answer enough. You don't know me, I said quietly. You haven't known me for 7 years, maybe longer, maybe you never did. You knew the little girl you wanted me to be. But you never tried to know the person I became. I started to walk away. He grabbed my arm. Wait, please, I can learn. I pulled my arm free. I watched Mom's videos last night, I said. All of them. She made you promise to put me first. To never let anyone make me feel less than. To love me no matter what. You looked her in the eye while she was dying and made that promise. Then you broke it. Not once. Not twice. Every single day for 7 years you broke that promise. His face crumbled. I was weak. I was lonely. Patricia was manipulative, I finished. Patricia was selfish. Patricia was a lot of things. But you were my father. You were supposed to protect me. Instead, you let her erase me. You helped her erase me. You took money Mom left to protect me and used it to make her kids happy. You removed Mom's pictures. You gave away my bedroom. You erased every trace of me and Mom from your life because it was easier than fighting for us. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. Maybe someday, I said. But not today. Not until you can tell me something about who I actually am, instead of who you needed me to be to make yourself feel less guilty. Not until you can look me in the eye and admit that you chose them over me. Not because you had to. Not because Patricia forced you, but because it was easier. Because loving me required work, and loving them didn't. I walked away from him for the second time, and what I thought would be the last. But life has a way of complicating things. Now I'm 29, a practicing attorney specializing in trust and estate law. I help kids who've been cut out of their own families, who've watched their inheritance get stolen, who've been erased from photos and histories while strangers took their place, who've been told they're dramatic, jealous, and ungrateful when they're actually just hurt. My office walls are covered with thank you cards, photos of clients who won their cases, kids who got their money back, families who were forced to face the truth. When clients ask how I got into this field, I tell them the truth, because someone did it to me first. And I made sure it never happened again. Not to me, and not to anyone else I can help. Tyler works in the office next to mine. He switched careers, went to law school after seeing what I did. We became a team. Madison is finishing her doctorate in psychology. We have dinner every Sunday at my dining room table. We look at photos of my mom and their dad, two people who did their best with what they had. Last week, I got a letter from Brandon's ex-fiancée. They'd broken up. She'd heard the full story from mutual friends and couldn't look at him the same way. She wanted to thank me for showing her who he really was before she married him. She wrote that Brandon had told her a completely different story, that I was the problem child who'd stolen from the family and made false accusations, that his mother Patricia had tried so hard to love me but I'd rejected every attempt, that I'd always been jealous of their happy family. Then she met Melody at a coffee shop. Melody told her the truth, showed her photos of the basement room I'd lived in, showed her the documents from the court case, told her about the family reunion and everything that came out. I can't marry someone who would watch their sister be treated that way and do nothing, she wrote. Someone who would lie about it afterward to make himself look better. Thank you for exposing the truth. You saved me from making a terrible mistake, I wrote back. Told her she deserved someone who would stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Someone who would see injustice and speak up, not laugh along. She wrote again a month later. She was dating someone new, someone who actually had a relationship with his siblings, someone who talked about family with love instead of obligation. Sometimes I think about Dad. Wonder if he lies awake at night regretting his choices. Wonder if he sees my face in his memories and feels shame. 3 months ago, I found out the answer. Dad had a heart attack, a major one. Uncle Marcus called me from the hospital. He's asking for you, he said. The doctors aren't sure he'll make it through the night. I drove 3 hours to the hospital, sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes trying to decide if I should go in. Tyler called while I was sitting there. Do you want me to come? He asked. You don't have to face this alone. I know, I said, but I think I need to. I walked into the ICU. Dad looked small in the hospital bed, pale, old, tubes and wires everywhere. When he saw me, he started crying. You came, he whispered. I sat in the chair beside his bed, didn't hold his hand, didn't touch him, just sat. I need to tell you something, he said. His voice was weak. In case I don't make it. Okay, I said. The letters, he started. Your mother's letters and videos. Patricia found them a year after we got married. She said they would confuse you, that they would make it harder for you to accept our new family. She said we should wait until you were older, more mature, more ready to understand. I waited. I believed her, he continued. I thought she was right. I thought I was protecting you. Then years passed and I'd forgotten about them. When I finally remembered and asked where they were, she said she'd thrown them away, said it was for the best, that you'd moved on. They weren't thrown away, I said quietly. Grandma found them in your attic, in a box labeled Christmas decorations. His face crumbled. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she'd kept them. You didn't look, I said. You didn't care enough to look. You're right, he whispered. I didn't. I was so desperate to make the new family work that I sacrificed the family I already had. I sacrificed you, and I can't take that back. No, I said. You can't. But I need you to know something, he said, watching you at that reunion, seeing how strong you'd become, how you'd built a life for yourself despite everything I'd done, how you'd helped Tyler and Madison. I was proud of you, more proud than I've ever been of anything, and I was ashamed, because I had nothing to do with the person you became. That was all you. I sat with that for a moment. Thank you for saying that, I finally said. Do you think? He started, then stopped, swallowed hard. Do you think you could ever forgive me? I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe, someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back to how things were, because how things were was me being erased and you letting it happen. I know, he said. I just want a chance to know you, the real you, not the daughter I wanted you to be, but the person you actually are. I looked at him for a long moment. What's my favorite color? I asked. He blinked. What? If you want to know, start there. What's my favorite color? He thought for a moment. His face showed the strain. Purple, he finally said. Like your mother's. She loved purple flowers. It's green, I said. Forest green. Like the trees I could see from the one window in the basement. His face fell. My favorite food is Thai curry, I continued. Specifically Panang curry from the place near my apartment. My best friend in high school was named Jordan. We worked at the diner together. She helped me study for the LSAT. My college major was political science with a minor in psychology. I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 16, since the day I realized what Patricia was doing was actually illegal and I could do something about it. He was crying again. I'm sorry. I should know these things. I should have asked. Yes, I said. You should have. The monitor beside his bed beeped steadily. A nurse came in to check his vitals, gave me a sympathetic look, and left. If I make it through this, Dad said quietly, could we try? Could we start over? Not as father and daughter. I know I lost that. But as two people getting to know each other, I thought about my mother's videos. About her telling me not to keep people around out of obligation. About how anyone who doesn't love, respect, and show up for me doesn't deserve me. But I also thought about the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd read me bedtime stories, who'd existed before Patricia, before the erasure, before everything fell apart. 1 coffee, I said. 1 coffee a month. You show up on time. You ask me questions about my life. You actually listen to the answers. You don't talk about Patricia or Brandon or Melody unless I ask. And if you miss 1 appointment, we're done. No second chances, no excuses. He nodded eagerly. Yes, I can do that. I will do that. And one more thing, I said. You write letters to Tyler and Madison, apologizing for what Patricia did to them, for allowing her into our lives without knowing her history, for not protecting them by checking her background. They lost their dad, and they need to know that not every parental figure in their lives was a disappointment. He looked confused. But I'm not their... You brought their abuser back into their lives, I said firmly, even if you didn't know it. You facilitated her access to them at that reunion. You owe them an apology. You're right, he said. I'll write to them. I promise. Dad survived the heart attack, spent 2 weeks in the hospital, then another month in cardiac rehab. I visited twice. Both times he asked about my life, about my work, about my house. He took notes in a small notebook so he'd remember. The coffee meeting started 3 months later, once a month like I'd said. The first one was awkward. He showed up 15 minutes early and ordered my drink wrong, got me a latte when I drink black coffee. But he was trying. He asked about my cases, about Tyler and Madison, about whether I was dating anyone. I answered some questions, deflected others. It was strange, sitting across from someone who used to know everything about me and now knew nothing. The second coffee was better. He remembered I drank black coffee. Asked about a case I'd mentioned the month before. Told me he'd written to Tyler and Madison like I'd asked. What did they say? I asked. Tyler wrote back, he said. Said he appreciated the apology but wasn't ready for more than that. Madison didn't respond. I nodded. That's their choice. You hurt them too, even if it was indirect. I know, he said. And I accept that. By the 6th coffee meeting, something had shifted. We weren't father and daughter, but we weren't strangers either. We were two people with a complicated history, trying to build something new from the ruins. He told me about the divorce, about how Patricia had blamed him for everything when the money ran out, about how she told Brandon and Melody that Dad was the one who'd wanted to exclude me, not her, about how she'd painted herself as the victim even as their house was being sold to pay what they owed. Did you correct her? I asked. Did you tell them the truth? Not at first, he admitted. I was still trying to protect her, still trying to salvage something. Then I showed them the court documents, the emails in my own words, the text messages. I couldn't let her lie about that too. How did they react? I asked. Brandon stopped speaking to me for 2 months, he said. Melody cried. Said she didn't know who to believe anymore. Said everyone in her life had lied to her. She's right, I said. Everyone did. Dad nodded. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I let it happen, why I was so weak. And, I asked, what have you learned? That I was afraid of being alone, he said. Your mother was the love of my life. When she died, I felt like I died too. Then Patricia came along and made me feel alive again, made me feel needed. And I was so desperate to hold on to that feeling that I sacrificed everything else, including you. At least you can admit it now, I said. Doesn't make it right, he said. Doesn't undo what I did, but maybe it explains it. Not excuses it, just explains it. I appreciated the distinction. A year into our monthly meetings, something unexpected happened. Dad had a new girlfriend. Her name was Joan. She was a widow, worked as a librarian, had 3 grown kids of her own. He asked if he could bring her to coffee, to introduce us. I almost said no. The last time he'd introduced me to someone, it had destroyed my childhood. But something in his voice made me pause. He sounded nervous, genuinely worried about what I'd think, like my opinion mattered. Okay, I said, but just coffee. Nothing more. Joan was nothing like Patricia. She was warm, but not pushy. Asked me questions, but didn't pry. When Dad mentioned my work, she said she'd read about a case I'd won. A high-profile case where I'd helped a teenager recover money her stepfather had stolen. She said she'd been impressed by the way I'd handled it. You must be very proud, she said to Dad. I am, he said quietly. More than I can say. After she excused herself to take a phone call, Dad leaned forward. What do you think? He asked. She seems nice, I said carefully. Normal. She is, he said. And I need you to know something. I've told her everything. About Patricia. About what I did to you. About the trust fund. Everything. I didn't want to start another relationship built on lies. What did she say? I asked. She said I should spend the rest of my life making it up to you, he said. If you'll let me. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He was older now. Gray hair. Lines around his eyes. But there was something different too. Something humbler. More aware. I don't need you to make it up to me, I said. I need you to be honest. To show up. To actually know me. Can you do that? I'm trying, he said. Every day I'm trying. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. Tyler and Madison eventually met Joan too. She invited all of us to Thanksgiving at her house. Her kids were there. Their families. Tyler brought his girlfriend. Madison brought her partner. Dad and I sat at opposite ends of the table. But we were at the same table. Joan's daughter asked how we all knew each other. There was a pause. Tyler looked at me. Madison looked at me. Dad looked at me. It's complicated, I said. But we're family. The kind we chose. Joan smiled. That's the best kind, she said. Brandon reached out again last year. Sent a long email. He'd been in therapy too, working through his complicity in everything that happened. He said he was ashamed. Said he'd been a coward. Said he understood if I never wanted to speak to him again. But he also said something that surprised me. He told me he'd started volunteering with kids in foster care. Kids who'd been abandoned or neglected. He said working with them had shown him what I must have felt. The isolation, the erasure, the pain of being invisible in your own family. I don't expect you to forgive me, he wrote. I don't even expect you to respond. But I needed you to know that you were right. About all of it. And I'm sorry I didn't see it until it was too late. I didn't respond for 3 weeks. Then I wrote back. Short and simple. Thank you for the apology. I'm glad you're helping those kids. They need people who understand. Maybe someday we can talk. But not yet. He wrote back immediately. Whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready, I'll be here. Melody and I have coffee twice a year now. She's in college, studying social work. She wants to help kids who've been in situations like mine, like Tyler's and Madison's. She calls me sometimes when she has questions about cases or needs advice. She apologized again at our last meeting. Said she'd always carry the guilt of not standing up for me. I told her she was a kid too. That Patricia had manipulated her just like she'd manipulated everyone else. But I still should have done something, she said. Maybe, I agreed. But you're doing something now. You're becoming the person who would have stood up for me. And that matters. Patricia tried to contact me once. Sent a letter to my office. It was long and rambling, full of excuses and justifications. She said I'd ruined her life. That I'd poisoned her children against her. That everything she'd done was for the good of the family. At the end, she wrote, "You were always a selfish child. Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become." I tore it up and threw it away. Then I called Tyler. He and Madison had received similar letters. We all agreed to ignore them, to not give her the satisfaction of a response. Some people don't deserve your energy, Madison said. She's one of them. Last month was the 5th anniversary of that family reunion. Uncle Marcus organized a memorial gathering for Grandma at the estate, the same place where everything had come out into the open, where my family had finally seen the truth. Dad asked if he could come. I told him yes. Joan came too. So did Tyler and Madison. Brandon sent flowers but didn't attend. Melody came with her girlfriend. We stood in the gardens where Grandma had loved to walk. Uncle Marcus talked about her strength, her wisdom, her fierce protection of family. He looked at me when he said that last part. She fought for you when you couldn't fight for yourself, he said. And she taught you how to fight when you were strong enough. That was her greatest gift. After the ceremony, I walked to the spot where I'd stood 5 years ago, where I'd watched my father confess, where I'd seen Patricia's mask slip, where I'd taken back my power. Dad found me there. I know what you're thinking about, he said. Do you? I asked. You're thinking about how much has changed, he said, about whether any of this was worth it, whether burning it all down led to something better. And what's your answer? I asked. He looked out over the gardens. I lost everything that day, he said. My wife, my house, my reputation, my relationship with my son, everything I'd built with Patricia turned to ash. I waited, but I gained something too, he continued, a chance to actually know my daughter, to see how remarkable she is, to understand what real strength looks like. He turned to me. So yes, it was worth it. Losing everything false to find something real. I felt something loosen in my chest, something I'd been holding on to for years. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. We walked back to the house together. Joan had made coffee. Tyler and Madison were laughing with some of my cousins. Melody was showing someone photos on her phone. It looked like a family gathering, a real one. As I poured coffee, Joan came up beside me. Your father talks about you constantly, she said. About how proud he is. About how he wishes he could go back and do things differently. He can't, I said. We both know that. No, she agreed. But he can do better going forward. And he's trying. Really trying. She smiled. For what it's worth, I think your mother would be proud of you. Of the person you've become despite everything. I thought about Mom's videos. About her telling me to protect myself. To only keep people in my life who loved, respected, and showed up for me. About her saying I deserved everything. Thank you, I said to Joan. That means a lot. Tyler found me later. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. I think I actually am. It's weird, isn't it? he said. Building something good out of something so broken. That's all we can do, though, I said. Take the broken pieces and make something new, something better. Madison joined us. She'd been crying, but she was smiling. I was just thinking about Dad, she said. About how he'd love this. All of us together. A real family. We are a real family, Tyler said. He put his arm around her. Around me. We chose each other. That makes us more real than blood ever could. Later that night, Dad walked me to my car. Thank you, he said, for giving me a chance. For letting me try. You're welcome, I said. But don't waste it. Don't take it for granted. Because I won't give you another one. I know, he said. I won't. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Dad was standing on the steps watching me leave, just like he had 5 years ago. But this time when he waved, I waved back. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fixed. But it was honest. And maybe that was enough. Now, when people ask me if I regret what I did, exposing my father, ruining his marriage, destroying the family, I tell them no. Because that family was built on lies and theft and erasure. What I destroyed wasn't real. It was a performance. A facade. What I built in its place is real. A chosen family. A law practice that helps people who've been hurt like I was. Relationships built on truth instead of obligation. And sometimes, on Sunday dinners around my table, with Tyler and Madison and Melody, and occasionally Dad and Joan, I look around and think about that moment at Brandon's engagement dinner. When he said I wasn't invited. When everyone laughed. I think about how that moment broke me, and then rebuilt me into someone stronger. I think about my mother's videos. About her telling me I deserve to be loved and respected and seen. And I realize I found all of that. Not from the family I was born into, but from the family I chose. From the people who showed up, who saw me, who stayed. At my last therapy session, my therapist asked if I still felt angry. About Dad, about Patricia, about those 7 years. Sometimes, I admitted, but mostly I feel grateful. Grateful? She asked. Grateful that I learned early what love shouldn't look like, I said. So I knew what to look for, what to build, what to accept, and what to walk away from. Patricia tried to erase me, but instead, she taught me exactly who I am and who I refuse to be. My therapist smiled. That's not just survival, she said. That's victory. Maybe it is, I said. Last week, I got a call from a potential client, a 19-year-old whose stepfather had been stealing from her college fund, who'd been excluded from family events, whose childhood bedroom had been given to her stepbrother, who'd been told she was dramatic when she complained. As she told me her story through tears, I felt that familiar anger, that protective fury that fuels every case I take. I can help you, I told her. I've been exactly where you are, and I can help you get justice. Really? She asked. Her voice was so small, so hopeful. You understand? I understand, I said, better than anyone. When we hung up, I looked at the photo on my desk, my mom holding me as a baby, Tyler and Madison on either side of me at Thanksgiving, Dad in the background, tentatively part of the scene but not dominating it. I thought about that dinner, about Brandon's laugh, about everyone joining in, about walking out and deciding that enough was enough. That moment changed everything. Not because it broke me, but because it freed me. And sometimes freedom looks like walking away. Sometimes it looks like exposing the truth. Sometimes it looks like building something new from ashes. But it always looks like choosing yourself, protecting yourself, believing that you deserve better. Because you do. We all do. And anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't deserve a place in your life. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it. And now I spend every day teaching it to others, helping them find their voice, their strength, their freedom. That's what I did with my anger, with my pain, with those 7 years of erasure. I turned it into purpose, into power, into proof that you can survive people trying to erase you. You can survive being made invisible. You can survive watching strangers take your place. You can survive it. And you can build something beautiful on the other side. At dinner that night, Brandon said I wasn't invited, that it was for real family. Everyone laughed. I just smiled and left. And that was the beginning of everything.